Hi guys, welcome to the next podcast. I'm doing it today with Jaco Geldnehuys, who is a professor at Stellenbosch University in computers. We just had a 2-hour podcast. What you will be listening to is his educational background. So what did he do his master's degree in, his doctorate. He's worked for NASA for a small project. He works at Stellenbosch University, how they go about that, writing programs. We went into talking about Interstellar and all the different dimensions and just a variety of topics. If you look in the information side of the YouTube video, which you're looking at now, you'll see that I've got a table of contents there and the time frames at which point we are talking about which topic. I know 2 hours is quite a long time to listen to. Just skip to it, leave a comment, press subscribe, press like. Hope you enjoy the chat with Jaco. And that's it, so we're live.
Excellent.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
So guys, I haven't done a podcast in about a month to 6 weeks due to load shedding. It's been very tricky. So I'm finally back with Jaco. And I'm just going to quickly introduce Jaco so that you know who he is. There's not many people, or there are many people that make me feel mentally inferior, but this is one of them. That I feel I might be out of my depth with a certain intelligence. But just to quickly introduce Jaco, you work at Stellenbosch University as
a janitor. Sorry, I'm so sorry starting at the wrong foot. Now I work as a professor, or my post is associate professor.
Okay.
But basically that means teaching and research.
In what field?
In computer science.
Okay, and
yes.
How long have you been there?
This time, 18 years.
18 years at Stellenbosch University.
No, I lied to you. I'm sorry. No, not 18. 14 years.
14 years.
Yes.
And what are your qualifications? What did you study?
So, let's see. I arrived in Stellenbosch in 1990 to do a BSc.
5 years after I was born.
Yes, me too. To do a BSc. And in 94, I started an honors BSc.
Okay.
So that's
just a standard BSc, or
just a regular BSc.
Okay.
I mean, in computer science, but I don't think it's really qualified like that.
All right.
So we didn't make. These days, they do make a little bit of a distinction.
All right.
You get a rough field, so a BSc in biology or a BSc in mathematics and stuff like that. But basically, BSc in computer science, let's say.
Okay, and then honors in?
1 year honors in computer science. Then I started my master's in 94. But this is a long story because I spent 1 year working on a master's.
Yeah.
Then I started teaching because the department needed someone to teach the first years.
All right.
So I was immediately put onto that. After 2 years of that, I decided that I'm about to finish my master's. I'd better start finding a PhD, place to do a PhD. And Stellenbosch didn't look like it was going to offer me that.
Yeah. What was your master's
about?
Theme? Yeah.
So for a long time, we've been working on software verification, meaning that you take software, computer's operating system, or the software that flies a plane, or that controls banking transactions and that, and you prove that it's correct. Or you try to determine that it has certain properties at least. So it won't crash, and it won't lose money, or it will execute within a certain time frame.
And if you prove or disprove, do you get any reward?
Not
other
usually.
Than recognition?
No, not usually. No, if I went to a bank and said, your software is correct, and they'll say, yeah, we know.
Yeah.
If you go to a bank and you say, I found a bug in your software, then they'll reward you. I mean, that's more prestigious, more recognition. If you find a weakness, because anybody can say the software works.
Yeah.
Nobody can tell really if you're accurate or not.
Yeah.
But if you say, I've found a bug and here it is, you can show that to people. You can say, oh, look.
So if you're a hacker, then you can get paid
Hackers
fairly
do
well.
get paid a lot.
All right.
I mean, legal hackers.
Have you considered to become a legal hacker?
No, because hacking for money is not interesting.
All right.
To me, at least.
What's interesting?
I like research. I like the concept of having an idea and trying it out,
Okay.
seeing if it works, and discovering it doesn't work at all. And then you wonder, wait, why didn't this work? I thought it was such a great idea.
Yeah.
And then you go back and you refine it, and you find, you learn you get a deep understanding of the subject area that you're studying, because every time you have an idea like this and you explore it, you find out a little more about what you're studying. So,
Okay.
I mean, that's true for any science. So hacking is a little like that, but it's also, I mean, there are parts that are just mundane.
It's the mercenaries of the IT community.
A little bit, but I mean, there are people with real talent for it. I mean, who
Okay.
can really do it well, and they're not useless. I mean, it's a good thing to be a good hacker
Yeah.
legally. So, I read an article about a German guy who is kind of in hiding in England, because he is a kind of a good hacker
Yeah.
who, when you download malware and it freezes up your computer
Yeah.
and it says pay 20 million euros into this account or 20 Bitcoin into this account,
Yeah.
and we'll release your files.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we delete them. It's called ransomware, because they're
Okay.
holding your files for ransom. You can't do anything because you'll either lose all your files
Yeah.
or, those are your options.
Yeah.
So he counteracts that. When somebody's computer is hijacked like that, he goes in and he fixes it. And
For a cheaper rate or for free?
For free.
Okay.
For free. He works for a security company in the Netherlands, and that's his job. And he likes it, and I'm glad for him. But
Like the
I don't
Robert
think-
Hood of the IT community.
A little bit, yeah. Well, I mean, the hackers are serious. I mean, they're part of Russian mafias and other mafias, not only Russians.
So
So it's a serious thing.
I'm gonna skip now.
Hang on, before we skip.
I'm gonna do what we said we're not gonna do, because I want to know your PhD studies.
Yeah. I
But
was just about
also,
to say that.
if you talk
Mhm.
about the Russian hackers,
Yes.
do you have an opinion of how they influence the elections in America? But which one do you want to talk about first? Your doctorate or the Russian hackers?
Well, the Russian hackers are easy because I have no idea. I mean, I don't think they hacked anything concrete.
Okay.
I
Or
think-
influenced.
Yeah, I think it's more of a social influencing that, they were on Twitter, they were on YouTube and Facebook and all these places. And I think that's where they hacked the election, in the sense that they distribute propaganda, false news. So, or
But
counterintelligence.
But is there a
That's
way
better word.
to find out how exactly and what they did, or is that a bit difficult? So can you go to all the registered Twitter accounts and find out who and what registered to
No,
where?
because I mean they're anonymous in some sense.
Okay, but you can't even hack that.
You can hack. I mean, you can find out who signed up for this Twitter account.
Yeah,
What's their name and what's their email address.
yeah.
But is that the real name? Is that the real email address, or just
Okay.
a fake email address that they created on Gmail, or an email address and name that they stole by hacking into someone's computer?
Okay, so even IP addresses and stuff can be.
Can be spoofed. So, I mean, at some point you have to say, is it worth the effort of finding one guy?
Okay.
Because, well, let's can that for now and
Okay.
get back to it if we have
Okay.
time.
Okay.
Because there's a whole story behind that as well.
Yeah.
So I was looking for a place to do a PhD. My MSc was done. It was about computer verification or software verification. And I sent out letters overseas because I wanted to go abroad, and sent about 20 letters. About 10 people responded, but 5 of those were negative, and the other 5 were, sure, you can come, and this is what we can offer you. And so I picked the one I liked best, and I went to Finland to do a PhD.
What's it, Helsinki or where?
Actually, a town called Tampere, which is about 200 km north of Helsinki.
Okay. Nice town?
I'd say yes. But I lived there for 7 years, so
And
I would say that, wouldn't I?
And at a university there.
Yes.
Okay.
So when I showed up, there were 3 universities.
In that town.
In the one, well, it's the largest inland Scandinavian city in the world.
Okay.
Tampere. It's the second largest city in Finland.
All right.
After Helsinki, and Helsinki is tricky because it's 3 cities in one.
Okay.
But Tampere is second largest, and they had a technical university, which is basically like our engineering faculty, but university on its own. It's common in Europe to have a university like that. And then they had a regular university, and they also had what we would call a technikon or a polytechnic, or they call it the ammattikorkeakoulu, which means a professional high school. That's what they call it.
And what was your doctorate in? What was your thesis?
Same thing, really.
Proving and disproving.
Yeah, but I mean, things have advanced a lot since I started. So when I say we prove that software is correct, I don't mean we actually write out mathematical proofs. What I really did was to write programs to check other programs.
Okay.
So it's like, what is it like? Locking a lock with a lock. It's like putting a lock on a lock, maybe on another lock. So that's basically what I still do. I make software that checks other software.
Okay.
And I don't only make the software, I also try to develop new techniques for making the software.
And you teach other people how to do that?
Yeah, a little, but not all the time. So when I teach first years and third years, and even the honor students, I don't really teach them anything that's directly related to my own work.
Okay.
So they still need to be taught the basics.
Okay.
Somebody has to teach that. But we do teach on some honors courses about our work. I say us because I'm part of a research group.
Yeah.
And more than one of us in the group, and between us we teach courses about our own work, and then of course we have postgraduate students, master students, and our own PhD students, and we teach them in a sense by example. But yeah.
And have you ever proven that something is not safe, or disproven any things?
Okay, I'll be honest. This technology is newish. So it only started really, this whole field started in the early 80s. And at that point they almost couldn't check a program. It was so small, it was just examples.
Yeah.
No real software.
Yeah.
By the 90s, things had developed, but we still didn't really check software.
But so what operating systems were you using, or what computers were you using?
Okay, right. Let's see. Think back to the 90s. So early 90s, we were using mainly DOS. So that's IBM DOS, Microsoft DOS. Windows had just been released for the first time. Windows 3 was still floating around. I suspect people were using that.
Yeah.
This is, I'm talking pre-95 now.
Yeah.
And then on most of the time we were using Unix, either on a microcomputer, a mini computer, which was like a mainframe but it's smaller. And it's like a central server, and many people can work on it at once.
Yeah.
And you have a terminal that you connect to the server with, and we used that. Or what was just coming out was Linux. So Linus Torvalds was still in Helsinki, in Finland, studying at the university, but building Linux. There'd been nightly releases, and I remember in '93 we were still downloading a new release of Linux, downloading it from Finland, and compiling it and installing it.
How long would the download take?
Not that long, because it's all software, and it wasn't
Okay.
as big as it is now. I mean,
Okay,
now it's
okay.
enormous. Back then it was tiny. And sometimes we'd send emails to Finland, ask about details, and he'd respond. So this was early days.
And there was a lot less people in IT back then. Small communities and groups, or
yeah,
has
I
it
think
always?
remember, I mean, Stellenbosch students only got email in 91. 91 was the first time we kind of started using email.
Mm.
The World Wide Web only really arrived in Stellenbosch in 93, 94.
And was that specifically the internet was designed for sharing research or for governments talking to each other, or why was the internet
Yeah, by that
created?
time the internet was broader than that.
Okay, but what was the original purpose of it?
Very originally, it was funded by DARPA, so the Defense Department, and maybe they had some kind of military goal behind it. But I think even from the start, the original idea was communication between universities and research institutions to exchange information.
And if you say it expanded by then, what did it expand to?
Well, since the early 80s, 1983, we had Usenix.
What's that?
That's before you were born. Nothing to do with you. None of your business. No, Usenix
I was born around about paratroopers came out on the computer.
dating yourself by the games. Usenix was a little. Do you know Reddit?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it was a little like Reddit.
Okay.
Lots of different forums, and you could subscribe to them,
Yeah.
and there'd be postings, people posting all the time. No images. I mean,
Yeah.
this is pre-image.
Okay.
Maybe there were a few images, but basically it was all text. People just exchanging basically emails,
Okay.
but on a public forum.
Yeah.
So Usenix was big, and it's still around in a way. So if you go to groups.google, that's what remains of Usenix, I think.
All right.
All these different groups with names like alt.religion.buddhism or comp.lang.java.
Yeah.
These funny names for groups,
Mm.
and there you discuss Java, the programming language, or Buddhism, or anything you wanted. I mean, it was all there.
Yeah.
And that was one part of the internet. So it was a public forum, basically, in some sense. It was for the public.
Yeah.
People could almost send emails. I mean, there's ways to send emails in the early days of the internet. Businesses could communicate, so you could download or send information files
Yeah.
from one place to another. And the early systems, I mean, the early web-based kind of systems, there was a system called Gopher, where you had like a little text menu. It showed you a text menu, and you could select an option, and it maybe takes you to another menu or another menu, and eventually to a file.
Okay.
So no graphics, no clicking on hyperlinks, all text-based, but you could convey information. You could, I mean, there's a lot of text on the internet now as well. Wikipedia is really essentially just a text with a lot of links.
Okay.
So it was a system called Gopher, and then if you wanted to transfer files, you'd use FTP.
Okay.
It's just a little program or protocol to send files from one place to another.
Mm.
And by the 80s, businesses had started to use the internet, and but it wasn't really until the World Wide Web, which is distinct from the internet.
So we separate those two.
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
I
You
do.
guys do.
I do. Well, because there's a lot on the internet apart from the World Wide Web.
So would the dark web, for example, be something different?
Let's say that's entirely different for now.
So like if let's say the internet was a study field,
Yes.
World Wide Web is one study field. What's the others? Or the other?
I wouldn't approach it quite like that.
Okay.
I wouldn't draw the lines like that.
Okay.
What I would draw the lines at is if you think of the internet or just networking, I mean, it has different categories or subfields. One would definitely be almost hardware. So how do all these networks work? I mean, where do the information go, and how are everybody connected, and how do we keep that up to date? So I mean, everything's connected by wires, but ultimately those wires must. I don't have a wire from my house to bbc.co.uk.
Yeah.
So how does the news get from BBC to my house?
Yeah.
So that infrastructure and also hardware, what's inside the computer to make it be able to work on the network? How does it work in that sense?
And how does it work?
Well,
How do you connect to? How does the information come from BBC
yes.
to your house in Strand or
Indeed,
Somerset West?
how does it work? Well, the idea is that if I send information or receive information, like an image, it's broken into really small parts called packets. And the packets are sent one by one. And we need some way of making sure that all the packets arrive in the right order on the other side. So for that, we have protocols. And a protocol is basically there so the two parties agree on how the information is going to be transmitted and what to do if the information fails. You know, if you miss out a little piece, how do you get the other guy to retransmit that, to resend it? So my computer at home sends these packets
Via
Wi-Fi, really,
to
my router. The router really just sends them along. It doesn't do anything special. It sends them along the cable, down the telephone line to another router or bridge at the telecom exchange.
Yeah.
That is connected to a bigger cable that sends the packets along to an even bigger server on the backbone. So in South Africa, there are these backbones that are really, let's think of them as really thick cables that can carry all the information, really.
And thick cable meaning?
Thick cable meaning that...
Size-wise?
Probably. I haven't ever seen one in real life.
Yeah.
It's probably sizable, but more importantly, it has a lot of bandwidth. So it's fast. A lot of packets can go down that wire.
Yeah.
And different companies, including Telkom itself, I think, rents out bandwidth on this big cable.
All right.
So
so then the information goes into that, and
from there it goes
satellite.
No, almost all the internet. I mean, not almost. The whole internet in South Africa goes via undersea cables.
So where?
Yes.
So where does this? So there's literally a cable from South Africa all the way.
There's literally a cable, a pipe somewhere near Muizenberg or wherever, where there's a big thick cable that goes into the sea, runs all the way across the floor, all the way up the coast, over across to Atlanta in the States, or maybe it branches off to New York as well.
So if I send an email. Everything goes through that system that you just said to Atlanta, back to the UK in a few seconds.
Yes. Amazing, isn't it?
It's crazy, huh?
Well, it's the speed of light.
So who came up with that, those cables? Who designed that?
Well, this is an old idea, of course.
Okay.
I mean, undersea cables is ancient.
Yeah.
So before we had telegraph and radio, we had undersea cables carrying telegraph signals between the UK and the US.
Is the telegraph the...
Morse code, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, there are all kinds of stories about that. You know, cables that break and fish that eat cables, and who knows what have you. Germans sabotaging cables, French sabotaging.
So if you go along the seabed, there's just bloody cables everywhere.
Not everywhere. The sea's big. It's bigger than the land, and
but then there's certain depths
big.
that I assume that you can't go to. So is that cable then just basically suspended in the water at about?
I don't know, but it isn't floating. It's on the floor.
Okay.
The bottom. Remember, they've mapped out the sea bottom, so they can somehow
know
where the holes are in the valleys.
They're smart people in charge of these things.
Yeah, I guess so. I hope so. Yes. I mean, it's a big enterprise.
Yeah.
For me, it wouldn't make sense to take a fishing boat and try to lay my own cable. But if there's many companies involved, many millions.
So nothing goes via satellite?
Almost nothing. Maybe a few, but it's insignificant because it's so slow. So
So, like, if you take, for example, WeTransfer, the website.
yeah,
So just that basically goes via the cables to some computer somewhere, and then someone accesses that.
yeah,
That's how it works.
basically yes.
And if you go back to now the internet, so you have the hardware and...
Right, so it's hardware and how do the protocols work, and also a little software about how do you know if a packet arrives. I'm sitting here, I'm a machine that's connecting the internet.
Yeah.
If a packet arrives, how do I know where to send it? So there are tables that tell me if this packet wants to go to bbc.co.uk, I send it to in that wire.
Yeah.
So it's arranged like that. But another big field is applications for networking.
So
And
like
this is things like
Outlook as an application for networking?
No, I mean a real application in the sense that a way, a domain where you can apply it, not a specific program.
Okay.
Not a software application, but where do you apply networking? What do we use it for?
Okay.
And again, there are many different specific applications, but yeah, email is definitely one of them.
Okay.
Everything on the web, on the internet rather, is really built on protocols. So at some point in the 80s and 90s, they defined a whole lot of protocols to do all different kinds of things on the internet.
Okay.
So mail, for example, there's a protocol for transferring mail.
Yeah.
It's called SMTP. Sorry, forgot my own area of expertise. And there's a protocol for checking the time on the internet, NTP.
Okay.
And there's a protocol for the web. It's called HTTP. And a protocol for transferring files, FTP, and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So almost anything you do on the internet, it must be defined in terms of a protocol. And that protocol kind of determines what do you want to do and how are you going to exchange this information.
Yeah.
And so one application is the web. But we don't really focus on that much. I mean, we try to teach our students how to make web applications and the principles involved, but it's not a big focus of ours because it's not very scientific.
Yeah.
It's a skill, it's a knowledge you have to acquire.
Yeah.
But you don't have to think about it in some sense. You know, you
Yeah.
have to calculate. Not conceptually, it's not difficult.
Okay.
So, and then there are more specific areas in networking, like security. How can we enforce security? There's another area like performance. How do we measure performance? How do we improve performance? How do we optimize the application areas? So
And there's people that are just in love with all of this. For example, you.
difficult to fathom. None of this is my first love.
Okay.
But
what's your first love then?
I'd say program verification. I mean,
So this all sounds the same to me, but in your field, this is all completely different.
Oh,
it's
yes.
like playing football and being the physiotherapist versus the player versus the coach versus the accountant.
Absolutely, it's like the difference between the owner of the club and the mascot.
Okay.
So, if you were to ask me to teach a networking course,
Yeah.
for undergraduates, no problem. I mean, I can read a book. I've had these courses. I've taught these courses in Finland. So I could probably pick it up. I need a little time to prepare, but easy peasy. If you ask me to teach this course for postgraduates, that's going to take a little more effort because this is a higher level. It's more advanced.
Okay.
And I'll have to prepare a lot harder. If you ask me to do research or even review and rate research that other people have done in networking,
Yeah.
I'd pass because you have to devote your life, you know.
Okay.
I mean, I know program verification. I've been reading the papers since the early 90s. I know who the players are.
Yeah.
I know where they publish. I know what they're doing, what they're up to. So I have a lot of knowledge about my domain that I don't have about other fields in computer science.
And if you had to choose like a few individuals or personalities that's been major contributors that you like? For example, the Bill Gates, or
Yes.
like, who would you choose? The people that you like think are massive contributors to all of this?
Well, firstly, I can say anybody because you don't know them.
No, but it's fine. There might be someone listening that they'll be like, I like what you say.
John Smith, Dan Brown. Yeah, I mean, there are many people, and they've had many different contributions. But you know, it's only been 40 years. It's too early to say who are the really big names. I mean, the one big name is probably Ed Clark.
Okay.
Because he was there when the field was started, and he's still kind of around and doing work. So
is he still alive?
He's still alive, but now
not actively alive.
No, I'm sure he's actively alive, but I'm not sure if he's active in academia anymore. He must be. I haven't heard.
But is it difficult to evolve with the time if you did stuff 30 years
Not
ago?
if you're the pioneer who's changing things. If you're leading the revolution, then it's easy.
Okay.
But yeah, it's difficult to keep up because, you know, suddenly a new idea pops up.
Is technology one of the most difficult fields to, or the most interesting or fast-paced fields in the world? Is like construction doesn't develop and advance as quickly as what you guys do on programming?
I think so. I mean, if you want to keep on top of your chosen field, there's a lot to keep up with.
Because at university they told us every 18 months it doubles. Is that still
information?
True?
I think so. If it's not accelerated,
they used to use the, like, if you take a little microchip, like every 18 months it halves in size. Basically.
Oh, that okay. That's
but like everything, like in information technology,
yeah, that's Moore's law. Moore's law says that it's very specific, but basically says that computer power doubles every 18 months.
Okay.
But there's also this idea that the information doubles every 18 months, the technical information out there.
Okay.
So that by the time you graduate, everything we taught you in first year is outdated. In some sense.
And who chooses what is valid information to teach?
Good point. But, well, I do. But, that's why we don't teach students. We do teach them knowledge. We do give them skills and teach them specific knowledge.
Yeah.
But that's not the focus of what we teach. The focus of what we teach is teaching a way of thinking, an attitude, a mindset, so that it doesn't matter what the details are. You can apply your thinking to new problems. So we teach problem solving and programming skills that transcend the knowledge that's around at the moment.
And you don't teach how to use MS-DOS?
Oh no. Don't teach how to use anything. I mean, maybe I'll mention it, but I expect the students to pick it up.
And they know it if they sign up for your courses.
I hope so. By the second year, they know. But even in first year, we're not cruel to the students. I show them how to do stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't show them every little detail. So if I had to teach something in Excel, I'd tell them, okay, this is how we... Look what I'm doing. Yeah. I'm opening Excel, I'm loading this file, I'm going to do this and do this and do that. But I don't go into every corner of Excel and tell them how every little thing works. I expect them to explore it by themselves and to pick it up like that.
And
life's too short.
Okay. if you take like the average person that's not, I like the term, balls deep into the field like you, like we know Bill Gates, Steve Jobs. Do they rate up there as innovators and massive contributors to the whole system of your field? You
know, it's a funny field because on the one hand, it's there's a lot of theory behind it, and there's a lot of scientific science behind computer science.
Yeah.
We don't have fridge science. We don't have microwave science.
Okay.
We do have computer science, and that's because computers are difficult to operate. I mean, arguably, you can learn to use a microwave in a few seconds, but you're not going to learn to use a computer in a few seconds. So they're complicated objects, and there's a lot to study. But it's also mixed with technology, you know. Business wants technology, and technology sells, and there's a lot of technological developments that's not based on science. You know, it's making a better operating system or making a better computer.
So as leaders and And businessmen and personalities, they were great, but not as actual scientists. That
Well, they weren't scientists,
developed.
and they didn't pretend to be.
Okay.
I think
so
Bill
they were
Gates,
just business people that pushed a product
yeah,
and managed people to develop it.
Yes, I mean, but it's tricky because
And they popularized it to the average person.
yeah, maybe, but I'm not sure if they popularized it. Computers are popular because they're useful.
Yeah.
They're
Or they
really,
made it
really
accessible
useful.
to for the average person.
Sure, but many people tried that.
Okay.
And, they weren't the only ones, but definitely they were really successful.
Yeah.
And it's not even because their ideas were brilliant. I mean, lots of people will say Microsoft products are not always the first choice for everyone. That's being very diplomatic.
What's your first choice?
The right tool for the right job.
Okay, so whatever.
Sometimes a hammer, sometimes a crowbar.
Okay.
So sometimes Microsoft Windows, sometimes Ubuntu or Linux, and sometimes Mac OS X. So you can't. It would be stupid to always use a crowbar for every single situation.
Okay.
So you choose the right tool for the right job.
And you don't care the values of these companies? Or do you have a personal opinion about some of these companies?
I've got lots of personal opinions about all companies, but the bottom line is, I mean, it's not nice. I mean, if you're a scientist,
Yeah.
you think maybe hypocritically that you're pure and you're pursuing, human knowledge and all is hunky-dory. But that's not true. I mean, sometimes you have to compromise and, you're not pure.
Yeah.
Businesses are in some sense more ethical than scientists because they start off by saying, I'm in it for the money. That's what a business is about.
Okay.
It's all about making money. It's not about benefiting humanity, even though the founders may say that.
Yeah.
It's not about benefiting society or making the world a better place or feeding the hungry or anything like that. The only purpose for a business to exist is money. They make money for their owners.
Yeah.
That benefits the owners. That is true. So it is for benefiting a small part of humanity, but only the owner. And that's how businesses work, and you can't blame them for doing that because that's how capitalism works. So, what's my opinion of these companies? Well,
because Apple is probably the biggest one.
Yes, but Apple, they make good products. I mean, nobody can deny that Macs, let's say Macs, are convenient. And they're beautiful, but they're horrendously overpriced. And Apple is also feeding this kind of insanity of upgrading every year to a new model, especially with iPhones and even iPads and some other equipment.
What phone do you have?
I have a Huawei.
And do you like that?
Yeah, it's okay. But I'm not mad about it. I mean, I had a Samsung before, and the only reason I got the Huawei was I was available, and I don't know even why I got it. You in the shop, and I'm not bothered. I mean,
you don't care which phone you have.
As long as it does what I want it to do.
Okay.
It's not inconvenient. But to be honest, I really miss my old Nokia, my little brick.
The 3310.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Or was it 20? But yeah, those ones.
Yeah.
Because,
why?
It didn't send me a lot of spam. It didn't show me news articles that depressed me. Didn't have to. I had I bought an old Nokia about 5 years ago, and I had to recharge it every 2 weeks. But then it stayed charged for 2 weeks. And I had to recharge it again.
But can't they design? Isn't there better batteries out there? But it's just economically not worth it for them to put into the phones. So they just like to keep you connected to the electrical plug. I'm sure
Why?
they must. I don't know.
In league with Eskom.
I don't know.
No, I think that you're right. It's about price. It's about price versus how long will it last and what will people accept.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you had a really cheap battery that you had to charge every hour on the hour, otherwise it goes flat. Nobody would buy that.
But I'm sure there's smartphone. They could, if they wanted to, put a 48-hour battery into a phone that isn't that big.
Maybe even longer, but the bottom line is that, okay, maybe it'll cost $10 more. People will still buy the phone, but slightly fewer, and they've made the calculations that it'll probably make a smaller profit. Or they could probably put in a battery that'll last a year, but then it'll cost $1 million more. And then they've cleverly decided no one's going to pay $1 million for a phone.
I'll pay it.
I don't even want to pay what I have to pay for a phone, so I won't be paying that.
Quickly, what I was thinking about when we talked about contributors.
Yes.
So, do you like the entity called NASA and how they've contributed to information technology?
Well, NASA. Well, let's see. NASA's a big organization.
Yeah.
And they've got their little fingers in many, many pies. So
and is that all politically
NASA
motivated?
No, I think NASA's very unpolitical.
Is it?
In a sense that they have a central mission. They want to go to space. Okay, let's pretend that that's their mission, because it kind of roughly is, but it's probably more complicated, nuanced than that.
Yeah.
You know, and that is political. I mean,
and the whole Mars thing is political.
Yeah, are they going to the Mars? Are they going to the moon? Are they going to the sun? I don't know where they're going.
Because I'm going to ask you about conspiracy theory moon in a second.
Sure.
And do you know the guy Neil deGrasse Tyson?
Yes, of course.
Because I heard the other day.
It's impossible to avoid him. He's everywhere.
Do you like him?
Yes and no.
What he says, is it true, or because his personality is quite bombastic? And for example, the other day I heard that he said, for example, if NASA wasn't there, then the microwave for your home appliance wouldn't be there. So indirectly, a lot of these, he was on Joe Rogan, and he said that that's where the microwave came from.
Well, he's very knowledgeable, so I probably believe him.
Is he very knowledgeable? And he knows
Neil
what
deGrasse
he's talking?
Tyson.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Is he genius levels?
No, I don't think he's a genius at all.
Okay.
He's probably far below a genius. But what he is he's a good scientist. And he's a good manager and a good science populist.
What is a good scientist? Somebody that pursues information and truth.
Yeah, and promotes science.
Okay.
And supports science. And produces science.
And it's abnormal that he's got a personality included with the science.
No, most scientists have, most of the time, unpleasant personality, but sometimes pleasant. And I don't think his personality is unpleasant. In fact, that's not why I don't like him.
Yeah.
I dislike him for a different reason.
Why do you dislike him?
Well, because he has a podcast. And I've just heard his voice so much. I cannot hear it anymore, because I've listened to hours and hours and hours of his voice.
Okay.
And especially when he gets excited, I hope I'm not doing it, his voice goes up a few octaves.
Yeah.
And I just can't take it anymore. It's not unpleasant, but if you hear too much of it.
So it's his voice that irritates
I like cheese,
you,
but I'm not going to eat 5
not his
kilos.
mind. So it's his voice that irritates you, not his mind and his personality.
No, he's got a nice mind. And I'm not sure if he's always... well, he's American, so you have to be a little aggressive, I think, to argue in those circles and debates. But
he's a big NASA advocate.
Yeah, of course. I mean, he's an astronomer, firstly.
Okay.
And he is director of Hayden Planetarium. I think he's still director, or maybe he's been promoted. But I think most of all, he's a science advocate. So even though he's a scientist, he is promoting science in the media and maybe private events and who knows what. So he's still a kind of scientist.
Yeah.
And he knows what he's talking about. You just have to be very careful, because whenever you say NASA, without NASA you won't have microwave, you have to think carefully. Did the Chinese invent microwaves 4,000 years before Christ or not? You always have to think that, because the Chinese have invented everything.
Is it?
No. Almost everything.
But are they amazing with...
pizza. No, I mean the usual stuff, fireworks, cannons.
So if you want to study something interesting or just want to catch up on stuff, study the Chinese and their inventions.
I wouldn't say that, but if you look at history, a lot of the stuff, paper was invented in China.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably an endless list of things that we think come from the West, but it was actually invented by the Chinese long before we had it.
So, like, do you say pizza or pasta was not from Italy?
Oh, no. It definitely came from China. I mean, that's documented.
Okay.
I think it may even have been Marco Polo who brought pasta to Italy. I'm not sure about pizza. That may be American, but it's not. It's Neapolitan. But
being arrogant is from America.
Oh, well, yeah, I guess.
Or bombastic.
Maybe, but I don't know. Maybe you can't generalize. You know, maybe there are Chinese people also.
Yeah.
Or groups.
No,
also
I'm just playing. Moon landing.
Now, before we get to moon landing, maybe just rewind a little bit. So Neil deGrasse Tyson. I forget what I was saying before that. My stack is full. But he's a nice guy. And the microwave. NASA. What benefits does NASA have? So their mission might be political because it's kind of governed by who's in power and
where's the funding coming from.
Exactly. Congress approves of funding. But NASA itself is quite, it may not be apolitical, but it's a very technical organization in the sense that, we have to go to space. But to do that, we have to have hardware engineers, people who build rockets, people who make software, people who investigate, how to keep astronauts healthy in space. So it spins off. There's a lot of other technologies that NASA causes or supports that they need, that we benefit from. And one of them is software. So NASA has made a lot of software, and some of it is freely available. They're very open sourcey.
Yeah.
And
would you enjoy working for them?
I have worked for them.
No way.
Little, kind of.
That you got paid?
No, I wasn't paid. I wasn't paid. No, so how it works is that...
How did you work for NASA? Or contribute for NASA?
So I had a colleague who studied with me, and he went to the UK for his PhD. And then after that, he went to work for NASA because they have a software wing.
And do they keep their eye on universities or college? Or like, how do they find you?
I have no idea.
Through word of mouth. There's this genius working in Helsinki on this research.
Yeah, I think it was word of mouth. I think it was a case of they wanted to start a software verification group, and they had one guy who was a big expert, and he knew who to ask in the science community how to recruit people from places. So this colleague went to work for them, and eventually came back to South Africa. We collaborated a little bit. And at some point, I also went overseas to work at NASA, but just as a collaborator.
At Houston?
No, this is at Ames in San Francisco.
And how long did you work there?
Oh, not long, about a month.
And was it a massive ego boost when you did that?
No, because, it's not really NASA. You must also understand how complicated the whole thing is. So, NASA... I'm not sure if they have any employees. They must have some. But then, instead of employing people, they have a contract with an outside company.
Okay.
But the outside company only exists to service NASA.
Okay.
So it's like almost a semi-NASA.
Yeah.
So my colleague and none of his collaborators were employed by NASA.
Yeah.
They were all employed by this company who contracted to NASA.
Ah, okay.
So... it was a bit of an ego boost. I spent a lot of money in the NASA gift shop, on the NASA base. But
did you buy like a hat and some badges?
T-shirts, mugs, goo, alien
what
goo.
Goo?
Alien goo.
What do you do with goo?
Oh, I put it in the cupboard, never look at it again. It was just glow in the dark goo. I thought it was funny.
How old were you when you did that?
Well, it was a couple of years ago. But I thought it would be a good gift, to give to a nephew or a niece.
Yeah.
But as it turned out, it wasn't that great, so I didn't do it. No, so I loved NASA. I loved my time in San Francisco.
But but you're happy with Stellenbosch University in your research?
Yeah, it's a beautiful place. Lately, I find that I have more and more balls to juggle, so it's getting more and more difficult to not be stressed out all the time.
So in an ideal world, you'll stop lecturing and you'll just do research
No, I'll
full
miss
time.
lecturing. No, I'll cut. If I'm going to cut something out, let's cut out the admin. because I like lecturing and I like doing research.
Okay.
I like the balance. I like my environment and my working hours and almost everything.
But just touching on your working hours,
Yes.
it's quite different from the average person.
Um,
Because we spoke about
maybe,
you
but
enjoying until 4 in the morning.
right. So
Because I don't know
Mm.
I don't know how many scientists or how many people at the university are so enthused by their work, such as you, where it's like,
but a lot, you know.
I really like my research, and once I get
course.
into it's like some people get hooked on House of Cards. You're like,
Yeah.
I'm busy designing or finding this, and
But-
it's until 4 in the morning
Sure.
binging.
But
But are many people like
scientists
this?
are like that. Yes, they're passionate people. They're,
And people that you work with that are similar like that, that are so like,
yeah,
oh my.
many. Yes, many, but not all.
Okay.
I mean, people differ. So some people's personalities, they're very much more regular than I am, and you know, if you have kids, you can't do what I'm doing.
Okay.
But being a scientist is creative. It's a creative job, like being an artist.
Yeah.
You're working on this puzzle, sometimes for years. So at the moment, we are working on a little puzzle that's unrelated to my main research, but I'm still working on it with other people.
Yeah.
We started at the start of 2016, and it's a tiny little puzzle, but you know, I say puzzle, but I mean it's a research question.
Can you say what the question is, or is that confidential?
It's not confidential, but it's I'm not sure if you'll appreciate it, but basically we are looking at strings, the strings of letters, any old random strings of letters, and if a letter, if a substring starts and ends with the same letter, we call it a box. So that little piece, it's like two parentheses. So if it starts with an A and ends with an A, that's called one box. And all we're asking is, what is the longest string you can make without repeating any box? So you're not allowed to repeat any box. It sounds stupid, but there are applications potentially in DNA.
And you love this.
And it's just a nice abstract puzzle, and we've been working on it for 2.5 years, 3.5 years, almost. So, it's this puzzle. It grips us, and sometimes in the middle of the night you get an idea and you have to go work on it. You have to.
And then you're like awake suddenly, and you're
Yeah,
like, "Oof."
but I've got a very small transition time between being awake and being asleep. Going to sleep takes longer, but waking up is immediate. So.
And then
Yeah.
it just randomly hits you, almost like if you're an artist, it just those creative
Yeah, you
juices
get
hit
inspiration.
you, and you're like in
And
the
you
zone.
also have runs. You have, you're in the zone,
Yeah.
and then you have to carry on.
Is that
Can't stop.
irritating for your partner then?
Yeah, Freddie does not like that. He,
If you're in the zone, it's like, leave me alone.
but Freddie is extremely self-disciplined. He wakes up, takes a shower, dresses, then he goes to work.
Yeah.
Even though he works from home,
Yeah.
he goes through that routine. I go, I stumble along in my underwear, go and sit in front of the computer, drink Coke, cold pizza. But Freddie will have a heart attack. He wants his morning coffee and his breakfast. And
most scientists like you, like they just don't fit the regular pattern.
I think many are, yes.
And do you find
Because-
that nutrition and exercise helps your research, or not really?
I wish it did, but I don't think it does. So, that I think there are 3 kinds of people in terms of coffee, of processing coffee.
Okay.
There are people without a specific gene. There are people with 1 copy of the gene, people with 2 copies of the gene. So if you don't have the gene, you're very sensitive to coffee, and if you drink it, you get the jitters. If you stop drinking it, you get headaches, withdrawal. And then at the other extreme, if you have 2 copies, then you're basically immune to caffeine. You can drink 10 cups of coffee and it has no effect.
Yeah.
And you can just stop using it and
Whatever.
nothing happens. And I'm like that.
Okay.
So I can't even say I drink a lot of coffee and it stimulates me in my research. I
Yeah.
really have. I don't think there's any correlation. I mean, there is a connection between research and nutrition, and that
Yeah.
is that because of my bad habits when it comes to working hours, I probably don't eat right all the time.
Okay.
So I probably skip meals when I shouldn't.
But it doesn't
Or-
influence your ability to sit behind a computer.
No, I don't think so. I've never experienced that.
Okay, so if
Really?
anyone's listening, the next few topics I want to segue
Okay.
into. First, we're going to go into the moon conspiracy,
Yes.
the first one. Second one, I want to talk about if you can make sense to the average person of Interstellar. And we spoke about Jodie Foster's, I think it was Contact.
Yes, Contact.
Um,
Great movie.
the other topic that I spoke to you
Yeah.
last time about that was super interesting. Does a higher power exist? Which I found super interesting.
Okay.
And then also mentioning maybe some podcasts that you like listening to
Yes.
that you think people can do. And also just briefly touching on your lectures of your millions of hours of lectures.
Yeah. I'll just work higher dimensions into that list as well. Okay, so let's see. Moon landing. Almost certainly not faked.
The first one.
There's only been...
How
well,
many?
Okay, there've been a couple. Okay, that's true. But I think I tend to
So
group
is
them all together.
The not Louis Armstrong.
Louis Armstrong, yes. Famous trumpeter. Lovely playing from the moon. Buzz Aldrin and Armstrong. What's his
Neil
name?
Armstrong.
Neil Armstrong.
I want to say Lance Armstrong, but...
Me
obviously-
too. It's not Louis. Yes, Neil
So
Armstrong.
that one happened.
But, oh, I mean, all of them almost happened for sure. Because,
No, but if you had to gun against your head, yes or no, it happened.
yes,
Okay.
for sure.
99.9% probability. It's
Point
true.
nine 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 nine.
Okay.
In my, for me at least.
And all this footage and shit that's out there that looks a bit weird. Because Neil deGrasse Tyson spoke about that,
Yeah.
and I was like, I need to speak to somebody in person.
Yeah.
I just
Look them in the eye and tell me
and they
that
must just like someone that's
Yes.
more that I think is smarter than me and knows about this. So you think it happened? Or
yeah.
you say it had happened.
Yeah, you know, it's so difficult because you can say, I think it happened. I know it happened. I
Okay.
believe it happened.
Okay.
I feel it happened. And all of the above.
Okay.
I live my life entirely sure that it happened.
All right.
Because, I mean, they're so... it would be so difficult to keep that kind of thing a secret.
Ah, okay.
I mean, if you think about real conspiracies that came out, I
Mm.
mean, what are real conspiracies that came true? Conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
Nixon?
Mm.
Would you say Nixon was a conspiracy
I don't know.
to cheat the American people? Came out almost immediately.
Yeah.
The burglars were caught the night they tried to break into
Yeah.
the Democratic...
And then the
Party
JFK
offices.
assassination,
Well, yeah, it's a conspiracy, but nothing has come out.
and then the
So that doesn't
9/11
tell us anything.
conspiracies, and
So again?
all the 9/11 conspiracies.
Yeah, but
and-
once again, what we're looking for is people who had a conspiracy theory and then it turned out to be true.
Okay.
And
So
if
which
that's
ones can you name on the top of your head?
Nothing. Because, I mean, if people had a theory, a secret theory, and it turned out to be true, that would tell us something. It would tell us how long can the government or whoever is guilty
Mm.
keep something secret. Is it hard to keep something like that? Is it hard to keep secret the fact that aliens assassinated JFK on the moon?
Mm.
Or is that a difficult thing or easy thing to keep secret?
Yeah. So basically like Ed Snowden, you need a whistleblower or like WikiLeaks or something.
Yeah, but
That proves
But the fact is there always is a whistleblower.
Yeah. So if there isn't one, then it probably means that
it
it's
didn't happen.
Okay.
So JFK was probably shot by Lee Harvey Oswald. People probably did land on the moon. Probably aren't aliens on Earth. And 9/11 was probably just terrorists.
so moon landing happened because nobody can.
Because nobody can keep a secret that well.
Okay.
So many people would have to have been involved. That's not proof. But it's...
And would you say that the footage because I heard that the other one is that re-entering the atmosphere, some of the microfilm got damaged through the heat or the whatever, so they had to fake the footage just to show something. Like
Why?
that was one thing
Why
that
did
I
they have
heard.
to fake the footage? To
Because
show
it got destroyed, and because it was
So what?
politically important.
Was it? I've never seen it. Have you seen it?
The footage that's out there about the landing.
But that wasn't they didn't take it on a camera roll and bring it back. It was transmitted live, electronically.
Okay. So everything was. So all of that is true.
Well, Well, let's.
And the flag that's like waving and all that stuff.
There is a wire in that flag, I think, or something. It's
Okay.
rigged to stay upright.
Okay.
I don't know if it's waving. I don't know.
Okay.
I do not know. But I know that there are people who claim that there are all these little pieces of evidence that show it was faked. And then there are people who say, no, there are explanations for that. So, no.
Okay.
How do you judge? I can't judge.
Segue into aliens. There's no aliens on Earth and there's never been.
On Earth, well, depends on how you define
But you
aliens.
believe that there are aliens or other beings out there.
It's almost certain. So
What makes it almost certain?
I think I spoke very accurately and correctly. Almost certain. It's a probability. So there is something called the Drake equation. It's a very easy thing. It's just like 7 things multiplied together. And these 7 things are how many planets are there in the whole universe.
Okay.
What are the chances that life will evolve on a planet? What are the chances that intelligent life will evolve? What are the chances that they will communicate with us? You know, things like that. And so this Drake equation, if you put in all the figures, if you plug in all the probabilities or numbers, then you get a number that tells you how many intelligent alien civilizations are there in the universe. So, we don't know what the numbers are to plug in, but we can take our worst guesses and our best guesses. You know, the worst case scenarios and the best case scenarios. And either way, it turns out that there are many, many, many alien civilizations. So even in the absolute worst case, there are still alien civilizations out there. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
There must be. The universe is so large.
Yeah.
I mean, there's between 100 and 200 billion, 1,000 million, between 100,000 million and 200,000 million stars in this galaxy.
In our galaxy.
In our galaxy.
And there's many.
There are about 100 billion galaxies.
No way.
All of these stars do not have planets, but we don't know how many have. But it's now it's starting to look like almost all stars have planets.
So, and we're a planet, but we're not a star, or we are a star.
Well, we've got the sun, that's our star.
Okay.
And we are 8 planets at the moment.
Okay. So
and
each star has a planet, or most stars has a planet.
Yeah. No,
so if you say there's 200,000 million stars
in this galaxy,
then you would say at least there's 100 planets at minimum.
Well, we've already detected 4,000
planets.
Yes.
And Mars is a planet.
Yes, but we're not counting Mars. I mean, I'm counting planets around faraway stars.
Yeah.
So of course we have 8 planets.
And would you, if you now had to just be creative, would you say that? Because I don't like the term aliens, because it means like the things that you see. But would you say there's aliens out there that would look similar to us?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, some people say yes, because they say that there are only a few ways that life can evolve, and only a few ways that intelligent life can evolve. But I mean, the question is, would you say that the dinosaurs look like us?
No.
Well, maybe then...
I don't know. Like, if you would say arm, legs, body...
2 legs, 2 arms, yes.
You know, head,
eyes,
the brain is
mouth.
inside the head, you know, like it follows a certain pattern, if you want to call it like that. But obviously...
Yeah.
I don't know if you have aliens with the brain in their hand, you know, and...
or maybe they don't have hands. Or maybe they're a gas inside a floppy membrane.
That just becomes weird to me. That's why I don't really understand Interstellar. Like, the concepts are just a bit difficult for me.
Yes.
But but you would say 99 point, just like...
It's almost certain there are aliens, but it's also almost certain that we'll never be able to, or at least, with the technology we have now, we can't reach them. Even if we
in a million years, we might?
Yeah, sure.
Would you think that we rate high on the intelligence scale compared to other aliens?
Compared to other aliens. What does it matter what I think?
I don't know. That's why you're here. I would love to hear your opinion.
Yeah, probably.
So we're quite intelligent.
Yeah.
And quite advanced, if we had to think.
Probably. Yes. I mean,
And how does aliens relate to the concept that there is a greater being out there, like a god or a creator,
okay. Well,
and the Big Bang and
let's
all of
just say
that stuff?
Let's just add that many people believe that civilizations have a lifetime. So, if you look back in history, very few civilizations last longer than about 2,000 years. I mean, the Roman Empire didn't last 2,000 years. The Greek civilization didn't last 2,000 years.
Yeah.
So civilizations have a tendency to destroy themselves, to run out of steam. Things get out of control. Because it's moving. A civilization is based on a certain idea. So the idea of Greek civilization being democracy, it follows a little trend. It's not static. And it changes. And at some point, it moves beyond what is feasible. The civilization moves out of its window and falls apart. So, are we very advanced? I guess so. But if we carry on like we're carrying on, we'll probably not last. I mean, technology is evolving. So we can feel civilization changing. I mean, we're in the change now.
But if you say we're not going to last, like, what's going to stop us? Artificial intelligence, or
maybe. But I mean,
do you think it's a danger? Because I listen to like Elon Musk.
Not to me. Now, artificial intelligence. How can that be a danger? What?
I don't know. Everyone talks about, or like not everyone.
Has your computer crashed? Ever?
No.
Or a program?
It's irritated me, but
mine has crashed it crashes all the time. It's slow, it hangs, it closes down. Even my beautiful little Mac, it hangs sometimes. If that's how artificial intelligence robot army is going to behave, buffering. I'm not too afraid.
So we don't have to worry about Terminator becoming real.
I'm not going to worry about Terminator, no.
And not children's children?
Maybe.
Like, let's say you fast forward 400 years. Would you think artificial intelligence might be dangerous?
No, I suspect not. I don't think artificial intelligence is the biggest danger, at least. I'd say that.
We ourselves are the biggest danger.
Yeah, but, society can collapse very easily. There was an American poet called Louis Untermeyer, and he wrote this beautiful poem about robots and machines and slaves and how they work for us, these machines. And he said that eventually the machines will watch us become slaves to our own slaves, in the sense that we're building our society around computers these days, and software, Instagram, social media in general, and television and YouTube and podcasts. And what happens if that collapses, if that breaks down? So what happens if the internet breaks tomorrow? Will our society fall apart?
Yeah.
Almost certainly. Global economy is based around the internet. I mean, we transfer money on the internet.
Yeah, my marketing for my business is internet.
We don't use the telephone system anymore. There aren't telephone cables. It's all internet based. It's becoming digital. So human race won't die out. We'll still be able to survive and we patch things up again. But that may be the end of the civilization that we're in.
They're still Italians, but the Romans.
They'll be the Italians will stay. Yes.
The Egyptian empire is gone, but the Egyptians are still there.
Exactly. Yes. Oh, yes. Is that what you mean? Yes.
Yeah.
I thought you meant after the collapse of civilization, the Italians will still be around.
No. I mean, like, the empire is gone, but the people are still there.
Yes, exactly. So I'm not worried about artificial intelligence, knowing how fragile computers and software is. But I am worried about just our reliance on this infrastructure that may not always work.
Would someone be able to create a virus that will just shut down the whole World Wide Web? Okay.
No. And there are safeguards. I mean, there are things to protect us. But what we don't have a protection against is the sun. The sun may wipe all our computers. So if there is a really big sun flare, then that can cause an electromagnetic pulse that can destroy a lot of electronic equipment on Earth. There has been such an outburst in the past. in the 1800s, there was a very big solar storm that caused the telegraph wires to catch fire, and I think it killed people by electrocution. And if that were to happen, we may lose a lot of equipment on Earth. So these mics won't work, your microwave won't work, your fridge won't work, your car won't work at all. Almost no cars will work.
Whew.
The internet will
So you have to walk to go buy your veg and go get your water and...
Buy with what?
With a little bit of 5 rand coins that lie around.
What are they going to do with 5 rand coins? They can't put it in a cash register.
Hectic.
The veg aren't refrigerated.
And do you spend time thinking of this, or is this a topic that every now and again comes up?
I can just spontaneously dream up these scenarios.
It's not part of your lectures.
I'm not worried about them. No, it's not. No.
Okay.
But to cover the other stuff, so let's take dimensions, interstellar, and higher beings all in one go.
Okay.
So the dimensions is a great thing. We obviously live in 3 dimensions, we think.
Yes.
Because things have 3-dimensional coordinates. Our life is 3-dimensional. These objects is what we call 3-dimensional. But you can think of time as a 4th dimension. But we don't usually do that. I mean, mathematically it's convenient, but not for day-to-day life. It's not as if I think of time as a 4th dimension and then I move one of the other dimensions down where time used to be. I don't think like that. But there are people who, and definitely mathematicians, like to think and work in higher dimensions, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And there's physicists who believe that the world is fundamentally 10-dimensional or 11-dimensional, which they say it's the only thing that explains how the world works.
Yeah.
And it's impossible to understand this stuff. But that's where, what is the guy called? Abbott, I think that's his name. His book comes in. So it's called Flatland, A Romance of 2 Dimensions. I'm pretty sure his surname is Abbott. And he wrote this book in the 1800s. It's about characters on a 2-dimensional plane. So there's no 3rd dimension, they're all flat. And there are shapes, a triangle, a circle, there are obviously squares. I think the squares are the police. It's difficult to remember. But they're really 2-dimensional, so they see in 2 dimensions. So whereas we see a flat image, I mean, I see your face as a flat image now. If you're a 2-dimensional being, you would see a flat line. And you would look around and all you see is this line. But, you'd adjust to that. That's how you live.
Yeah, experience
And
stuff.
then he designed all these neat gadgets where you can have, in 2 dimensions, you can have a room that you can lock with a key. A door that can open and close, and you can lock it.
Yeah.
And so you can have a prison, for example, a prison cell, or just a room. And you can have a 2-dimensional intestines, biology, a kind of tract where your food will go down. So people have spent a lot of time imagining all kinds of gadgets, scissors, knives, car, I don't know, steam engines. In how would they work and look in 2 dimensions? Okay. But then in the book also, one day there's a 3-dimensional being that decides to visit this flatland. So if you're a flat shape, you can only see in your plane. So if you look in a certain direction, there's a circle there, you only see a straight line.
So if this is the plane, there is an object there, that's an object there, and they can only see like this. Where the 3-dimensional can do all of this. Is that what you're basically saying?
I mean, think of a piece of paper as a flat plane. And now there are 2 circles on the plane, in the plane.
Yeah.
And they have an eye somewhere. And we are pretending that light moves in this plane, but only in the plane. It doesn't go out.
Yeah.
So if there's a sun somewhere that's shining light, it'll be reflected to this guy's eyes.
Yeah.
And when he looks at this other character, he will see, only his width. I mean, he can't see that it's a circle.
Yeah.
But of course, if this guy turns, well, from this guy's perspective, he still looks the same.
Yeah.
Because if you turn a circle and you look from the side, if you put a CD disc, do people know what a CD disc is? A coin. From the side, and you turn it, it still stays a coin.
Yeah.
I teach for first years. I have to be very careful about what I say. I can't reference CD.
Let's just use technology. A head, because that's something that will never change.
Well, a head is not two-dimensional. But if you have a square, I mean, that'll change to 2 dimensions if you think about it.
Yeah.
If you look at it straight on from the side, it's a certain width. But as it rotates, it grows a little wider. And then it goes narrow again.
Yeah, I get you what you're saying. Yeah, no, I'm getting it.
And a triangle, I don't know what a triangle will do or look like.
It was similar to the square, possibly.
Yeah, probably. But, I mean, you can also think that these objects can feel each other. So maybe they have another way of sensing what the other character is. Who knows? But then a 3-dimensional being comes along, and they have these amazing abilities. So they can reach inside a locked room.
Okay.
Because if that's flat piece of paper, there's a locked room somehow in the middle. The characters on the paper can't get in and out of the locked room because for them it's solid. There's no way out. But I'm in the 3rd dimension. I've got the 3rd dimension to work with. So I could just
reach over, go in,
pick them up, or
Yeah.
As I put my hand through the plane, I mean, what will they see? For example, if I take a ball and I throw it through the plane, what would they see? Well, when the ball just touches the plane, they'd see a little dot appearing suddenly.
Yeah.
It came from nowhere. Suddenly appeared, and then it grew wider, and then it shrunk back and disappeared again.
It's almost like if you're going to look now at this video camera. Like if you look at my hand, it's out of the frame. So this is like 2 dimensions. But then it comes into the dimension and then it leaves. Is that basically what you're saying? And we can only see what the camera is showing us. The camera, people looking at home, they can't
see what's outside the frame.
Yeah. And it's almost the same with the 2-dimensional characters. They can't see outside the frame.
Yes, absolutely. There is no existence
but
for
there's
them
a whole different world outside this frame.
Exactly, yes. That is absolutely correct. I mean, they don't know that it exists.
Yeah.
People at home don't know. That above our heads could be a pink, fluffy shark, and they'd never know. Yeah. It's only when the shark actually comes into frame that it suddenly appears.
Yeah.
And in the same way, yes, if you throw a ball, let's say, through a plane, then it suddenly appears and then disappears again. Or if I put my finger through, I put my finger in the plane and I take it out again, and something has appeared in the plane and disappeared again. And if I could pick one of these characters up and move them out of the plane, I could take him out of that locked room and move him to the outside.
And then that character wouldn't know how it happened.
I don't know what it would experience while it was in the 3rd dimension, but yeah.
So you basically take it from its normal universe, put it through a different universe, and then it returns back to its other universe, and then it's interstellar moment of what the fuck just happened.
Exactly. So the idea is that, I'm not sure if Abbott did this explicitly, but other people have gone back and said, well, this is a metaphor for us to interpret how to explain some phenomena in our world, like ghosts. A ghost that suddenly appears and disappears.
Okay.
Is that perhaps a 4th dimensional being that's reaching into our 3 dimensions?
Would deja vu classify as that?
I don't know. I guess not, because deja vu is a entirely internal feeling. No, it's a feeling.
But you feel like it did happen before, and it's
absolutely, but it's entirely inside your head, inside your heart, let's say.
Yeah.
It's not a physical manifestation.
And premonitions, like I have a feeling that something's going to go wrong.
Get inside your head, so maybe it does figure in the sense that if you think of time as a dimension, I mean,
and time is the 4th dimension now.
Well,
what's the 4th dimension?
Well, the 4th dimension can be anything you want. It doesn't have to. I mean, time isn't always the 4th dimension. So at the moment we have 3 dimensions.
First one
think of a cube.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to call it something, we call it X, Y, and Z.
Okay.
But those are 3 dimensions. Think of a cube, a Rubik's cube.
Yeah.
And then as I change it, as time passes, time is increasing all the time. So that's like a fourth axis, a fourth dimension that's increasing. But just as when the creatures moved from the this 2-dimensional plane, I mean, they also had time in a 2-dimensional plane. They could move around, go into rooms and make love and do all kinds of stuff in the 2 dimensions. So time was a kind of their 3rd dimension. Or you could think of time as a 3rd dimension. But putting time aside, I mean, from my perspective, my 3rd dimension is also their 3rd dimension. So they were in a 3-dimensional world all the time. They just didn't know it. They were restricted to the plane. But from my perspective, they did live in a 3-dimensional world. But time is still my 4th dimension. So we could think that maybe our world that we live in is really 4-dimensional, with time being a 5th dimension. And maybe there are 4-dimensional beings that reach into our 3 dimensions, like I reached into the 2-dimensional plane, and they appear as ghosts. Suddenly appear and disappear.
Yeah. And what would, for example, if you say they think there's 10 or 11 dimensions, what would 6, 7, what would those things become?
So, I'm not sure. So this is all what is called string theory.
What does string theory mean? Unprovable?
No. Maybe. But the bottom line is, this is physicists who try to explain how the world works.
Yeah.
And in the 1900s, they were still at the atom model.
So they're just speculating in a very calculated way.
Well, you be the judge. I mean, in the 1900s, they had atoms. They thought the world consisted of atoms. But they didn't prove that those existed. I mean, they did prove that those existed. I mean, they did show that atoms are real.
Yeah.
Then they had what is called the solar system model of the atom, where you have a nucleus with protons and neutrons and electrons floating around that.
Yeah.
And they showed us that hypothesis is accurate.
Yeah.
So. And then suddenly there was an explosion, and they discovered so many particles, different kinds of particles, things like the positron and neutrinos and things with strange behavior. So eventually they decided that the right solution for this is to say that there are things that are smaller than a proton. A proton really consists of quarks. So now they've got smaller particles, and that seems to pan out.
Okay.
And now the next step is to explain all those particles in terms of what are called strings. So that very, very small conceptual things that vibrate at a certain frequency.
Okay.
And for the mathematics behind string theory to work out, they need there to be 10 dimensions.
Okay.
I don't know the details, but I'm figuring that they need 3 plus 3 plus 3 dimensions.
So does time travel come into play when we talk about dimensions?
Yes, definitely. I mean, that's all time travel is.
And do you think that will ever happen?
I don't know. This is the biggest mystery, I think, in science.
If time travel will happen one day, or is possible?
Is possible at all. Maybe
is that what Interstellar did? Is that what is Interstellar? Because that fucking guy goes somewhere.
Fuck him!
And then he goes into something.
Yes.
And then he's able to push that book off the shelf, and then suddenly he's in another universe where his daughter is old. And is that time travel, or what is that?
Well, firstly, time travel is not forbidden by physics.
Okay.
So there are things that can't happen in physics. I mean, well, let me think of something that's impossible in physics. There are many things that are possible in physics.
Yeah.
Like if you knock one of those cups off the table and it shatters and breaks.
Yeah.
There is a very, 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 very small probability that the reverse thing will suddenly happen. Pieces will come together again. It'll jump back up on the table and land intact back on the table.
Yeah.
That is not impossible. It's just
I don't understand that.
Extremely unlikely.
If you take this material, you knock it, it will fall and break. It's impossible for it to come back onto the table.
It's not impossible. No.
How does that happen then? I don't understand. I don't understand that.
In some sense, anything is possible, but it's just very, very, very unlikely. It's so unlikely that it will not happen in a trillion, billion, trillion, quadrillion years.
But there is a
small probability. There's nothing in physics that rules it out. Physics has no rule that says that is absolutely impossible. So physics says...
I don't like physics then.
Physics says anything can happen, and we're just going to calculate what is the probability.
Okay.
And the probability for this to happen is very small. So, but not impossible.
So if this is one crazy concept, what is their opinion on time travel then?
So physics definitely, as far as I know, does not rule out time travel.
Okay.
It is not already impossible. And of course, time travel into the future is quite common. We all do it all the time. I travel into the future 1 second per second.
Oh.
Every second, I'm 1 second further into the future. I'm going into the future.
Okay.
You can even travel far into the future. If you freeze yourself cryogenically and you wake up, you essentially have time traveled.
Yeah, because no time has expired for you, but it has in a different universe, basically.
Also, when you travel, even if you don't have to freeze yourself, you'll be happy to learn. If you travel near the speed of light, then your time moves very, very slowly. So if you leave the Earth going quite fast and you come back quite fast, then you would have aged a year, let's say.
Okay.
But everybody else on Earth would have aged 50 years.
Yeah.
So that's called time dilation.
And does that happen to anyone?
Not to people, but it happens to objects, yes.
Like what type of objects?
Like GPS satellites.
Okay.
They travel fast.
Yeah.
And it's not only about traveling fast, but they also travel further out of the Earth's gravity.
Okay.
So time goes more quickly. Time passes more quickly for GPS satellites.
But then is that like because then Earth's rules don't apply to them anymore? So the concept of age is becoming different for them and for us.
All the laws of physics apply everywhere. And the one law is that the rate at which time passes depends on how much gravity you experience.
Okay.
Or how fast you're traveling. So if you're near a black hole, time will go slower and slower and slower and slower and slower.
Okay, but
because the gravity is so strong.
And black holes are?
Okay. So let's talk.
The more we're going to talk here, the more like I know the concept, but I don't actually know what it means. Yes. So I've heard of the term, but I don't.
So black holes are amazing little objects. They are when a star is done, spent all its fuel.
Yeah.
You know, there's fuel inside a sun, a star.
Yeah.
It's hydrogen that's being fused together, and it makes helium and other elements. When all that hydrogen is done, it's finished. The sun can no longer perform fusion. It can no longer make energy. So the only reason why it stayed inflated, let's call it that, is because it was working inside. There was so much pressure that it kind of pushed out all the material. And in fact, it was radiating heat and light, as we know. But when the reaction in the middle stops, at the center stops, there's no more pressure there. So the sun starts collapsing and goes faster and faster and faster because there's nothing to stop the material falling in.
Yeah.
Gravity is so strong, it falls in. Now, as it falls in, it squeezes together the stuff inside, and the temperature goes up again. And it starts doing a little more work, and it does this a few times, and then finally it can't help it anymore. It just collapses all in one. And that collapse can be so violent if there's enough material. It's so quick that all that stuff collapses to a single point. Just one point.
Which is many like this big.
No, it's smaller. It has no dimensions.
Okay.
It's called a singularity.
All right.
A singularity is really a point. It's not a width. It doesn't have width. It doesn't have height. It doesn't have thickness, anything. It's a single point in space.
Yeah.
A pure location. But now there's a lot of mass there. All that stuff that used to be the star
Yeah.
is now all concentrated in that one point. And that's called a singularity. And essentially it's a black hole. Because the gravity, the density of that material is infinite.
Hmm.
I mean, if you know what density is. It's mass divided by volume.
Yeah.
But the mass is now big and the volume is zero.
Yeah.
It's a point.
Yeah.
So the density is infinite. And so gravity is enormous.
So what happens if my finger touches that point?
It goes... "Bang." No,
Metallica starts playing in the universe.
Okay, so now we're talking about black holes. So a black hole has a mass.
Yeah. So let's say like you take water's mass versus petrol versus oil.
Yeah. So
And then there's different layers that suddenly starts forming. Or is that something different? Or the density?
So let's think about this.
So if you take a liter of water, there's a liter's worth of mass, and then it has a
Okay, so
certain
let's
type
take-
of density.
Let's
and then,
take water.
yeah,
And that's a good example. How much does a liter of water weigh?
a kilogram.
Right. So it has a density that we define actually
Yeah.
as 1.
Yeah.
Do we? Yeah, let's say we do.
Okay.
Okay. So the density of water is 1. What would happen if you take that water and you put it in some kind of unbreakable bag and you squeeze it really, really hard
Hmm.
with some kind of vice?
Yeah.
You put it in a vice and you just squeeze it and squeeze it and squeeze it.
Yeah.
What do you think will happen?
I have no idea. I don't know.
Well,
Does it become more dense?
yes, if you squeeze it enough and the volume goes down,
Yeah.
it'll become more dense because the mass stays the same.
Yeah. Okay.
Have you tried it ever? Clearly not.
No.
Why would you? Have you ever pumped a bicycle tire?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh. Have you noticed it gets hotter and hotter?
Mm.
That's because you're actually squeezing a lot of air into the same volume.
Okay.
I mean, the tire gets a little bigger, it inflates up to a
Yeah.
certain point. But the last few strokes, you are trying to put more and more air in. You're squeezing the air tighter and tighter, but it just can't get much bigger.
The
I mean,
container.
otherwise it'll
can-
burst.
Yeah.
So the pressure in that tire is going up. That's what you want. You want the
Mm.
tire to be highly pressurized, so
Yeah.
it can take the
And then
Knots.
once it bursts, like air that has no noise suddenly has a noise.
that too also. But I think if you notice, if you touch the tire, it'll be a little hot.
Yeah.
And the same will happen to the water. We're increasing the density, we're increasing the pressure, and the volume goes down, so the temperature will shoot up. So that water will actually start boiling if you squeeze it hard enough.
So that little singularity might be very warm. And it might burn me if I touch it.
You won't be able to touch it. Forget about touching it. Don't touch it. Don't touch anything. Don't touch anything in
Well,
this
is that not
universe.
possible?
No, it's not. Because
So is it possible to go into a black hole? Like those big things that you see in some...
how can you go into it if it has no volume?
Okay. Jesus.
I'm lying to you. It does have a volume in some sense, in the sense that the gravity is so strong at the black hole,
Mm.
light can't get out. So if you shine a torch in it, nothing reflects back. It stays black.
Hmm.
You can't see inside it. And it's not only the light that comes right to the point that can't come out. Even light that goes very close by it.
Hmm.
If you try to just like point a flashlight or laser pointer past the black hole, that light will also disappear because the black hole swallows the light. It pulls the light into the black
And
hole.
that pulls time in for some reason.
Let's
Why
just
does
put-
time go slower?
Well, let's just put time a little bit aside. But the fact is that there's really a ball around the black hole. The
Okay.
black hole is a volumeless point, singularity in the middle.
And how big is this ball then?
It depends on how much mass there is. And if you throw an empty beer can into the black hole, it gets a little more mass and it grows a little. And then it grows and grows and grows. Everything that it swallows, it grows and grows and grows.
Like an anaconda swallowing more animals.
Yes, like anaconda swallowing a lot of animals.
It gets bigger and bigger.
It will have to. So now.
So if it swallows enough things, can it go from that smaller than a ballpoint pen back to the size of my finger?
No. The singularity always remains zero volume. But this thing called the event horizon.
Oh yeah.
That's what this ball is, and it grows bigger. It can also shrink in some cases, but it essentially grows bigger and bigger.
So that movie Event Horizon, was that a good movie in your opinion?
I can't remember what it's about. Was there a black hole in it? Or was it just a ship called Event Horizon?
Yeah. And then he traveled and then he went a bit crazy and there was this dark stuff coming out.
I remember, but I don't remember a black hole. Was there one?
I don't know. He reached
I remember the first sci-fi movie I saw.
Which ones?
The Black Hole.
What made you think of that?
I don't know. I can't remember much of it, but I think it had good music as well.
Okay.
Classic music score. In any case, I wanted to tell you that you are not getting close to the black hole, or you're not at the black hole, but you're getting close to it. If you have enough power, you can still get out. You can still back away. But as soon as you cross the event horizon, you're doomed. The gravity is so strong, you can't get back out. No matter what you do. Not even light can get back out. So, even before the point that you cross the event horizon, the gravity is so strong that, well, it depends on how you're diving into the black hole. But if you dive head first, the gravity at your fingers is so much stronger than the gravity at your toes that you will be stretched out. Your fingers will be pulled much, much faster. And this is called spaghettification. You'll be pulled into a long string.
And then basically disappear once you reach the black hole.
Inside the black hole, it's so strong that your atoms are ripped apart.
Next level for me.
All goes down to zero volume. So, can we know for sure that black holes aren't portals to different Yeah, we can. You die inside a black hole.
You die.
Well, long before you hit the black hole, even you'd be dead.
And then time travel. So we were talking about that. So
if you remember the Interstellar movie, I can't remember it, but I guess that they were. I don't know how they got there, but they went somewhere where they visited different planets to see if any of them are good alternatives for the Earth.
Yeah.
That's what I'm guessing.
Yeah.
And one of them was close to a black hole, one of these planets, which is not a problem. I mean, if our sun was immediately replaced by a black hole, nothing would change.
Okay.
Except for the darkness.
Yeah.
Of course, there'd be no more sun.
Except for extinction.
Yes. But apart from that, Mrs. Lincoln, how did you enjoy the play? Nothing would happen to our orbit. We'd still go around the sun. We wouldn't suddenly fall into the sun. It's not as if a black hole is a big monster that eats up everything it can.
Yeah.
If the Earth turned into a black hole, the moon would still go round and round. Nobody would care. But in Interstellar, so they had a planet near a black hole, which is fine, as long as there's other source. Maybe there was a sun as well. But if you get close to a black hole, the gravity is so strong. And do you remember I said something about time dilation? If you're in a strong gravity field, time passes more slowly. Until, in fact, in the black hole, it's as if time stands still. You can't. If you were still able to think, you'd feel as if time is frozen.
Yeah.
So the closer you get to the black hole, the slower time is passing. And that was an issue with getting to this planet, because it was so close to the black hole that even a short trip to the planet would cost them 4 years or something like that, if I remember the figure. And they didn't want to waste that time. but because they'd be 4 years older.
Yeah.
So that has nothing to do with the time travel in Interstellar. This just happened to be a planet around a black hole, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
The time travel came later on, didn't it? They were coming back or going somewhere.
The time travel for me is... I don't know.
There was that alien face, wasn't there, outside the spaceship?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly now. All I remember is, I don't know if it's because they were close to the black hole, so their time slowed down, and then his daughter's time was continuing at the same speed, and then they found a different planet, and they went to that new planet like fucking...
No, I don't think that's what happened. I think,
and then there was this weird dimension where he went into something, and he could push the books out. And I'm like, is that something that's viable or possible or probable?
Well, it's not viable in the sense that we can arrange for you to go there. But it's viable in the sense that it makes sense.
Okay.
It's sensible.
But that might be possible at some point.
Probably not.
If there's more Elon Musks out there and SpaceX explorations.
But
is Elon Musk a genius?
I don't know.
If you had to guess.
I should stop touching the cable. I'm so used to touching stuff between my legs.
No, it doesn't make any noise if you do that.
Is Elon Musk a genius? I don't know. I've heard him speak, and he sounds more like a very good salesman. But he definitely also has good ideas.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
So does he fall into the Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, businessman managing other people as opposed to coming up with the actual stuff?
Well, I mean, Bill Gates did have a few ideas. Steve Jobs had maybe even more ideas.
Yeah.
And Elon Musk
the actual
also
legwork
has ideas. Yeah, these are big ideas. These are things like we're going to build an electric car.
Yeah, and then he gets a group of people to do that for him.
Yes. And maybe he contributes a little bit of the technical details.
Okay.
But I just don't know.
But he does understand what they're doing in the end.
I'm sure. I mean, I think he has an engineering background, so he's not stupid. It's not hard to understand. But...
back to the time
travel.
I
just want to get back to time travel. So, I think in Interstellar, what happened in the end, there was some kind of alien being or beings that were multidimensional. So they lived outside our 3 or maybe 4 dimensions.
Yeah.
If you think about that Flatland creature that we picked up and put outside the locked room.
Yeah.
What if we kind of turned him and showed him this 3-dimensional world?
Yeah.
And he'd be seeing all kinds of stuff, and it wouldn't make perfect sense to him.
Yeah.
I mean, he's used to seeing flat lines and open horizons.
Yeah.
And that would be his world. But if he suddenly saw the world as we saw it, maybe only in a 1-dimensional slice. So imagine looking through a 1-dimensional slit into the whole world. But it's changing all the time, and that must be really confusing. He'd be able to make a little sense of it.
Yeah.
I mean, in the slit, he would see things that looked like circles and things that were familiar to him.
Yeah.
But also the configurations would be funny, and it would change in a funny way. And that's how I think what happened at the end of Interstellar. This guy was taken by these beings into a different set of dimensions. So instead of the regular 3 dimensions that we're used to, and you can think of time as the 4th dimension, he was perhaps placed in a different part of the universe, in a different set of 3. He can only exist in 3 dimensions.
Yeah.
Just as my flat guy from the Flatland he's only ever going to be flat.
Yeah.
He's never going to turn into a 3-dimensional ball.
Yeah.
So he will stay 3-dimensional, but I can put him on the shelf. And now he's outside Flatland, outside his whole world.
Yeah.
But he's still in this whole universe. Where
he stays the same, but he can experience certain elements of the other worlds.
Yes, and he sees things very differently now. So I think that's what happened in Interstellar. In the end, if you remember, he went through those bookcases, but they were really confusing. Configuration was all off, and he'd go around the corner, and
but that was, I think he also went through the bookshelves in a different time.
And then time was also acting really funny, so that he could actually, he was in a different spot in time. So when he pushed the books through, on the other side of the bookcase was his daughter.
But is that probable that that exists? And that might one day be...
It's very difficult to say because, once again, physics doesn't forbid time travel.
Okay.
But there are things that we don't understand how it would work.
But Back to the Future might happen one day.
Back to the Future is even... if it can be more problematic than Interstellar because it doesn't care. Nobody cares about the physics in Back to the Future. But in Interstellar...
But Back to the Future 3 might be more accurate.
Well, might just be. Who knows? Actually, in Back to the Future, they're going to the future. And then they come back.
I can't remember.
Now, it's only Back to the Future 3 where they go back to the Wild West.
It was before I was born.
Very true. So
I don't know if it was. I was born 85, so
Back to the Future 3 was definitely post 85.
Okay.
Maybe Back to the Future 1, 86 maybe. But the bottom line is that if we are able to go back in time and you change something, I mean, that would affect the future, the whole future. Even just your existence will change it.
Yeah.
Because you're disturbing air atoms that weren't disturbed before.
Yeah.
And I mean, let's think that you and I transport back 24 hours now, immediately, to the same place. I mean, in the now, where did our atoms go? Did our atoms go back in time?
Yeah.
What's filling this vacuum? Will there be a rush of wind rushing in to fill the vacuum?
Yeah.
And where do our atoms go? Do they push out other atoms 24 hours ago? Or do we absorb those atoms? You know, my hand is solid. It needs to go somewhere.
Yeah.
Even if it goes to the past. And there's already something there. There's air there.
Yeah.
So, or can my hand appear right in the middle of this little table?
Or is it only your mind that goes back in time? Or
that would be even weirder.
Yeah.
Because my mind is all in my brain. I don't know.
It's just, it confuses me. It hurts my head to think of all of these things.
Yeah, the fact is that as soon as you do time travel into the past, there are issues with paradoxes that can arise.
Okay.
Things that can be different. That it's difficult for us to resolve. I mean, if I go back and stop myself from going back, did I go back? No, I stopped myself. Oh, but how did I go back to stop myself? You know, even simple things like that is...
So I know. I think when we spoke about this last time, I think we spoke quickly about the movie. I think it's Mars with Matt Damon.
Did we?
Yeah, I think you said that is.
Oh, A Mission to Mars. No, it's not called that. It's called Mission to Mars. Is one of my favorite movies. I really like it, but it's a different movie.
Is that an old movie or?
It's a little older, yes. Greg Kinnear and
accurate.
Kind of. Well, that was about aliens.
Okay.
Life starting on Mars and then migrating to Earth and all that kind of stuff.
You said
I liked it.
Nice the music. Movie Arrival you liked as well?
I loved Arrival, but maybe because it was about languages. I do like languages. So,
and then the one where Matt Damon was living on Mars and growing his potatoes and...
what's it called?
I don't know. My phone's lying on the other side now. Wasn't it called Mars?
Was it?
Whatever.
Captain Mars.
Can you remember if that was accurate?
Yeah, it was very accurate.
You think so?
Very, very accurate.
Growing the potatoes and then even shooting out from the little spaceship at the end.
Yeah, that was fine.
You think that's all good?
Yeah, definitely. The most unrealistic part was where he was injured.
Okay.
Because winds on Mars are not that strong. Mars hardly has an atmosphere. I mean, there's dust devils.
And that communication that they were doing, is that fine?
Oh, well... I don't know if it's accurate if you would think of that, but
yeah.
These NASA people are highly trained, so then maybe the astronauts will think of something that clever.
Okay.
But it felt more like a novelist writing their book. Okay. So you know it's based on a book by a scientist who just speculated what would happen if you were stranded on Mars. And how would you survive?
Yeah,
what would you
Bear Grylls on Mars.
Bear Grylls on Mars, yes, exactly. It would have been funny if Bear Grylls suddenly showed up. Drinking his own pee. Okay. But there was another movie. Contact. Contact.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I love that movie. It's so beautiful.
I can't remember it now, but
So it's about aliens contacting us. But Contact was also written by a famous scientist, maybe the most famous scientist of the 80s,
which
Carl
one?
Sagan.
Okay.
And he was an astronomer and a physicist, really, I guess. And he wrote this book about how would it realistically work if aliens contacted us in some way, sent us a message. And that's probably the most realistic rendition of alien contact that I've seen. So far.
Not Independence Day with Will Smith.
No. No, I can't say I found that more realistic.
No, I'm just joking.
I know, but I'm trying to think of another movie even more ludicrous.
District 9.
District 9. I think Independence Day was more realistic than District 9.
Okay.
Sorry, other way around. District 9 was the more realistic version.
Yeah.
Independence Day was just Skopskiet and Donner.
Would you think that aliens, because there's a lot of these ones where
Yeah.
aliens are destructive, wouldn't they just be a little bit more harmonious if they made contact? Or would it be like the Roman Empire
Let's
going on
pretend-
a expedition of gaining more planets?
Yeah, let's pretend for a second that aliens do exist and that they can come here somehow.
Yeah.
Don't know how, but somehow. If you went to a planet, what species would you contact?
Yeah.
The one that's dominant, appears most often?
Yeah.
That's not humans, though.
Which one is? What is the most dominant?
What is the most numerous species on Earth that's everywhere? There's nowhere on Earth without these
Plants?
bacteria.
Bacteria. Jeez.
We are full of bacteria. We are just big bags of bacteria.
Yeah.
Humans are just bacteria's way of reproducing. So
As a living organism, bacteria is the most predominant or the
Yes.
largest amount.
yeah,
So you think aliens would for a second try to communicate to bacteria?
maybe if they were interested in communicating at all. And why would they even come here? Do they want the planet?
Let's say they had a Christopher Columbus among them.
Are they explorers? So now we're presuming so many things, that they're intelligent, that they have this drive to explore, that they can
Yeah.
even move around. I don't know. How long is this? 2 hours yet?
I think we're approaching 2 hours. I would say
Oh
we wrap
dear.
up in about 15 minutes.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Because most people,
Are asleep by now.
well, I would say most people didn't even tune in. That's how I start my podcast.
No, you mustn't be negative.
No. I'm just saying it because I just don't mind that much. But I know most of my friends, they would love to listen to it, but it is quite difficult to listen to 2 hours. It's
Yeah.
like, let's say you take research, like some people love it and they do it, and I'm big into podcasts.
Yeah.
And I sometimes listen to a 2-hour one straight away.
Yeah.
But some people find that difficult.
Mm.
If I had a personal assistant, I've done it where I break it up into smaller
Oh.
parts, but it's a lot of
Takes time. Yeah.
So at the moment, I can't really do it. I think what I'm going to start doing after with this one, I obviously have to edit everything.
Yeah.
But then I'll say in the beginning, like before you even come up,
Yeah.
like almost like Freddie does. We're going to talk about this, and then I'll put like at this time we talk about this, at this,
Right.
this, and then I can just skip to
Okay.
it. you
Oh,
know.
like a table of contents almost.
Almost like a table of
Yeah.
contents with the time we talk about
Yeah.
where we switch to different topics,
Okay.
which I think will just be helpful
I
for
think it's
people.
very clever, yeah.
Yeah, but there's quite a lot. Like if people want to listen to any of your lectures, where do they go? Or you're going to send me the link on WhatsApp and then I can put it up?
I will send you the link, but you can just search for it. I think it's open. So
What do you
it's not-
search for on Google?
SU for Stellenbosch University,
Yeah,
and then RW for Rekenaarwetenskap 11
RW.
RW 114.
And then they find you on YouTube.
Well, not me. They'll find a special channel for
Yeah.
my one course that
Okay.
I recorded, and
How many lectures do you have there?
I only give about 39 lectures in each course.
So how many lectures
But
would
I
you say
only
do you have online?
record about 30 of them, because sometimes
Yeah,
I forget, or it
Yeah.
breaks, or it's not that kind of lecture. And I've done it 2 years now, so there ought to be about 60.
And how long is
recordings.
each lecture, roughly?
Roughly 45 minutes.
So there's almost about 50 hours of...
Yeah, but it repeats. So
Okay.
I recorded it several years.
Okay.
So that students who can't come to class or have social phobias or had a doctor's appointment can catch up if they miss a class. Of course, as it turns out, they just all stayed away and just promised themselves to watch YouTube and never did. But bottom line is that was the idea, the intention, and it actually worked quite well in the sense that I'd come to class, I'd press a button, and I'd give my lecture.
And was that available live, the lectures?
Yeah,
That's so
streamed.
cool.
Well, I mean, I was recorded directly onto YouTube.
That is so cool.
And it wasn't me in the sense that it wasn't a picture of me. It was my slides and my voice.
Okay.
But not my face.
So like a PowerPoint presentation with the audio.
Basically, yes. And whenever I did something on screen, like I did a lot of programming in class. So that would all be broadcast live.
Okay. Do you have a personal website where people can check you out?
Just my university website. If you Google my name, Jaco Geldnehuys, you'll find me.
Professor Jaco Geldnehuys.
You don't have to add that.
But you are
my
a
name is
professor.
enough. I am, yes.
Was it nice when you officially became one? Where the prof came in?
Well, yes, it was nice, yes. I must admit that.
Is that like you are officially recognized that you are equal in the educational world? It's almost like winning an Oscar. Like
I won't deny that it has a certain value to put that title in front of your name.
Yeah.
I don't care so much because I now can see behind the curtain of the Wizard of Oz, but I think for many people it still has a bit of a value.
Yeah.
So my bank treats me better than they treat Dr. Geldenhuys or Mr. Geldenhuys. And for me, it's not a disappointment, but once you get to this level, then I worked for it and I deserve it, and now I have it. So
yeah.
So there, and not much else to.
Do you think Freddie introduces or tells people like I'm married to a professor?
Yes, I think he likes doing that. But maybe jokingly sometimes, maybe other times not.
Yeah.
But for me,
he
of
never
course,
told me that he's married to a professor.
Oh, good.
But maybe didn't feel like bragging to me.
Well, given if it was my choice, I'd prefer that he. I mean, when people ask me, I say I teach computer science at Stellenbosch. I don't say I am professor. That's not how I introduce myself.
I asked Freddie actually, like, what do you think Jaco would find? What would he like to talk about? He's like, well, other than me,
we haven't spoken about him at all. It's such it's a sin. It's a outrage.
He's like, you would obviously the discussion of Finland, but there's just so many things that I want to talk to you about. Like, it's impossible to do it in one session. So I would love to have you back, and because.
I can come back 2 times. Once just to talk about Freddie and then all the other stuff.
And then another one to cover all of the other stuff.
Yes.
But just for interest, if people are at this point listening, Freddie is an addictions counselor. So I've got 2 podcasts with him. One is a little bit more personal, which you actually listen to.
Yeah.
The other one is a little bit more theoretical in the sense of how to identify different addictive traits, behaviors, how to stop them, how to overcome them, either if you are the individual or if you are the partner, family member or certain. Did you have time to listen to that one?
I didn't listen to that one yet, no.
Okay. Freddie's quite tough on himself with that one. He's like, fuck, I was like doing an oral. And it was quite intense.
Yeah, I must admit, I'm a little behind. It was a tough first term, so I'm behind and I know this was last year, but I'm behind, so far behind on everything.
And Freddie has his own podcast.
He has his own podcast.
How many do you listen to there?
I'm behind on that as well.
If you had to say percentage-wise, how many podcasts have you listened to on Freddie's thing?
Oh, I think I'm only missing out about 15 out of 60. No, more than that, 75 maybe. So it's a smallish
So you listen to about 70 to 80% of his podcasts.
Yeah.
Do you give him feedback on 70 to 80% of his podcasts?
No. Well, not yes or no. Once in a while, he'll ask me to be on the podcast, and then we discuss what has happened since last time.
Yeah.
If I've become spiritual at all, the answer is always no. What I thought of his previous podcast, last couple, and then I'd perhaps single a few out or say, I see you've started a theme and I really like it, or why don't you do that, or why did you interview that person? That was really interesting. Or,
but like speaking about spirituality, like you spoke earlier about the genes that, you know, with coffee. And
yes.
Would you say that people such as yourself that's more into computers and stuff, there's a less spiritual aspect that you consider or interested in, or like you, because difficult. I find a lot of people that are, there's different types of people out there. Like me and Freddie is the most chattiest Cathys in the world. Yeah. We're quite open, sensitive to emotions and feelings and thoughts and interaction with people. And spirituality is like a big pursuit and interest for us, where some people just don't have it. And it doesn't really influence their lives.
Yeah, I think scientists are sometimes, I am, very materialistic. So we only believe in things that are material, atoms. If you twist my arm, I'll admit that there are patterns as well. But those are really the only things that exist for me in this universe.
So feelings don't exist?
Feelings do exist. Feelings are patterns of chemicals that are released in your brain. It's a physical
experience.
And I'm not denying or diminishing feelings. I mean, feelings are important. I too have feelings.
Once every 7 days.
No, I've got lots of feelings. But I don't believe in a separate spirit, an aura or a soul or a ghost that exists on a different in a different dimension.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean I don't believe in spirituality.
Yeah.
I think spirituality is a way of looking at the world. It's a different way of looking at the world.
There's different glasses to look through.
Exactly, yeah.
But it doesn't interest you that much as your computer.
A bit. I mean, if you put a gun to my head once again, second gun you have, put to my head, I choose programming above all else, or doing research on a computer above all else.
Would you be happy to live in a world with 1 million computers and no people?
As opposed to a world with 1 million people and
one computer.
One computer, of course. Because no, I think ultimately I'd be unhappy.
Okay.
I think I'd be unhappy.
But it's quite tough to consider.
Well, yeah.
1 million people, no computer, or 1 million computers, no people?
Yeah.
Are you that fascinated with your work?
I honestly,
it's so cool to see. And you work in the thing that you're the most passionate about. And you get paid to research it, and you get paid, and you get given.
Yeah, I mean,
given hardware and software to pursue it more.
Well, I have to buy that stuff. I mean,
you don't get funded
from research funds, so I get some research funding, and I buy it from my own. But
if you get to a certain level of research, and you're like, shit, I actually need a better computer, and there's no budget for it, you would spend your own money to get that computer.
Not my personal bank account money, but to get to that level of high level of research, I mean, part of it, and it's not all fun and games. I mean, there's hard work and unpleasant things involved as well. Like, for example, having to apply for funding, making sure that you have research money available so that you can pay people to do PhDs and master's studies, and buy computers for your students, and buy computers for yourself if you need them, or buy travel to conferences.
Okay.
So, I mean, there's a lot of unpleasantness involved as well. It's not all fun and games.
Yeah.
But I can honestly say that I can't wait in the morning to get up out of bed and run to the computer and do stuff.
That is so cool.
It is a blessed life.
Something to finish on, maybe the last topic, because I wanted to ask you earlier when we talked about the internet and the big fat cables. Why is the fiber so slow to develop here and not working everywhere? And why do other countries have such... I
have no idea.
Why do other countries have... Like, my brothers are in Korea, and they're like, oh my God, like, this is so amazing. And it's like, why are we still struggling with it? And even they're laying the cables and it's not really working.
Yeah, so you mustn't be fooled. I mean, other countries have their own bureaucratic issues. So, yeah, sure. Some places in the States have fiber, but many places don't. Most of places don't have. You know, they're rural and they
Yeah, but we
don't
in
have
Cape
internet.
Town and Stellenbosch consider ourselves to be fairly advanced.
Yes.
And if you look at the neighborhoods in Stellenbosch, very few have highly functional
I think this
operational
is
fiber.
mostly a kind of bureaucratic, municipal kind of issue. I mean, our fiber cables are in.
The Stellenbosch University, like I went to Farga and I'm like, this is just ridiculous.
I know. It's amazing how fast it
But
is.
how do you get that? What did you guys do at the university to get it that fast?
Well, we...
Do you have those fat cables running beneath the university?
Well, firstly, we are on a special backbone of the internet in South Africa for universities.
And
So
do you know what is the download and upload speed of those things?
I have no idea. I don't even care anymore. It's just, it's not relevant.
Because I uploaded 11 gig upload speed, 11 gig in 15 minutes the other day, and I'm like,
If it's that fast, you don't even look at the speed. You say,
you
oh,
don't
it's just
even
gonna
look at the
happen.
numbers.
Yeah, but
what allows for that? And why do the houses not have that?
well, once again, the houses, I think it's more bureaucracy than anything else. Our fiber is ready. It's ready in the street. It's ready at our houses. The only thing that we need is approval from the municipality to dig the final hole.
And do you steal certain communication lines from the rest of the...
Steel.
Not
No.
steal, but you guys get priority and...
I know I'm talking about us at home in Somerset West, not the
Okay.
university.
Oh, okay, so you guys have fiber there. But is that the
Our
same...
house has fiber. Our street has fiber. They're just not connected.
Ah,
And the
okay.
municipality say that it's going to take about 2 months.
Why? Why?
Read 6 months.
Why?
I don't know why. They took a year to approve our constitution for our AGOs.
But why would they like to regulate that? Why wouldn't they allow to give you freedom?
I don't think they're regulated in the regular sense of the word.
But who's
They
got
don't-
a...
I think it's just a matter of they've got a lot of forms and a lot of people and they're just behind.
But would
I
it,
don't know. No,
if I
don't.
was a rich guy
Yes.
and I lived right here, would
Mm.
I be able to get the backbone of Stellenbosch University?
Oh no. That's definitely it's a regulatory thing. I mean, there's regulations about who can use that, and it's.
But I can't install something or buy something that gives me that speed.
Well, you can get a similar speed, but you can't be connected to the university's backbone.
No, but can I install my own backbone if I had enough money and connections?
You can probably get something that's very, very close to it.
Okay.
But you'll probably have to go through the right service providers to get to the access to the backbone. You can't just connect your house directly to the backbone.
Yeah.
You have to go through the channels and
Yeah.
wires. Oh, little kitty.
So we have two little cats. The one still passed out, and the other one woke up, which I think is a sign from the universe that
It's time to go.
it's time to finish. The worst part of these cats are, at which point do they wake up with the playing genetic taking over, and this whole setup just being cables. And I'm like, that is the thing that irritates me the most of the cats. But if my setup isn't here, they're the most wonderful creatures to have around.
Yeah.
So, Jaco, I think we're going to wrap it up there. I think we just went over 2 hours. Thank you so much. I would love to have you back. One for Freddie and one for the rest of the stuff.
It's been a pleasure. I honestly I love talking. So
Yeah.
love
So
chatting.
thank you so much. And let's finish it there.
Excellent.
Cool.